In just a matter of weeks, a second deadly tornado ripped across the Texas High Plains this week. It's been a sudden switch in weather, and as we found out this week, the year of extremes could also come at the cost of cotton acres. Last summer, sentiments across the Texas Panhandle were sinking.
This is going to leave a scar, going to leave a mark that guys are going to remember forever.
We don't have an acre of dry land left. It's all been felled out.
Nearly a year later, the story is dramatically different.
Pretty drastically, pretty quickly, too.
Cody Besant is the CEO of Plains Cotton Growers, representing cotton farmers across 42 counties in the Texas High Plains. Besant says farms across much of his area received a deluge of rainfall right at planting, and that sudden switch created new challenges.
As you get through the Panhandle area and all the way down to the western portion of the High Plains, their plant deadline is May 31st. So we've obviously surpassed that.
But as you move south, that deadline was later, and more of the cotton crop was able to get planted this year. But it's definitely a different story, depending on where you travel in the Panhandle.
Really what that kind of means from a logistics standpoint, from acres, we're going to see obviously a pretty sizable amount of reduction in acres from basically Plainview North. At least from a cotton perspective.
He says this area historically plants 3.5 to 3.7 million acres.
We're probably going to be about 3.2 to 3.5 million acres planted.
Not only was it rainfall impacting planting this year, but also what farmers have seen since.
Lots of hail. There has been a lot with these storms that have come through. There's been a lot of hail with them. We had areas where we had 4 to 5 inches of rain that fell over a couple of hours and just completely flooded the fields.
We caught up with Todd Straley while he was in Amsterdam this week promoting U.S. cotton. But last year when we talked to him, that's when the drought was drowning out farmers' hopes.
When you get up north of Plainview, where I am, up into the northern Panhandle of Swisher County, and then even north of that, up north of I-40, I think I had about 20% of my acres in that area that got planted, and I don't think I have an acre of that standing today.
Besant says that's in a fairly small area of the Panhandle that took the brunt of the damage, with field after field that looked like this.
Several acres being impacted by that, but it's really pocketed. It's not a big splash like one would think that it is. From a number standpoint, I'd say maybe a couple 100,000.
Straley says Plainview and South, the planting and production picture is much better for cotton.
We had roughly 60% of our intended acres what actually got planted. Of that 60%, roughly 20% of that has been lost to hail.
But still better than last year's nightmare.
Honestly, the stuff that got planted and is still standing today looks awesome. A lot of my dry land has 3 and 4 foot profile underneath it, better moisture than we have seen in a long, long time.
But just look at USDA's latest ratings for subsoil moisture in the Crop Progress Report. 30% of Texas's subsoil moisture is considered short to very short. That compares to 72% on April 2nd. That's when USDA's first Crop Progress Report of the year was released. For crop conditions, 1/3 of the cotton in Texas is rated good to excellent. Compare that, though, to Alabama, where 75% of the crop is in the good to excellent category.
Today we're getting rain, glad of it. Just average year of getting it in, getting everything planted.
The Bridgeforth's farm in northern Alabama, while cotton is considered their main crop, Gregory says their rotation is typically split into thirds with a mix of corn, cotton, and soybeans. But he says to keep the crop going, there's one main thing they need.
Rain.
With little heat to start, it impacted the Bridgeforth's cotton crop.
Cotton is running a little behind schedule.
But Mother Nature turned up the heat this week with what meteorologists are calling the Omega block dominating the U.S. and bringing a heat wave in Texas.
We needed that to really kind of get cotton going and off to the races.
Now, NASS will give that updated look at acres next week, but in the March report, USDA said growers intended to plant 11.3 million acres of cotton this year, an 18% drop from last year. Well, cotton country in Texas is also home to a number of wind turbines, but it's solar panels stirring up debate and customer support this week. That's next.
Crops are not as green as we think, and it's not the drought.